Okay, we are up to Siman Kuf Lam and Aleph, which are the halachis of Erev and Kippur. We're up to Sif Aleph. Says the Kitzur like this: Noyagin lasis kaparis. The minig is 1 second. It happened over here. Oh, the minig is that we do kaparis Erev Yom Kippurim. We do it on Erev Yom Kippur. Bashmeides habayker. Bashmeides habayker means when the dawn is coming in the morning, basically very early in the morning. Why do we do it specifically then in the very early morning? Because that's a time that there's a streak of chesed. It says a chut of chesed, and therefore that's when we do it, because the whole point is we're trying to get kapara. Now the Kitzur says loichin tarnigel she'enim mesoides. You take a tarnigel that's not castrated, that has the ability to have children, but I don't know how you would even know that. Either way, over here it says that the Alter Rebbe doesn't actually say that in the Kitzur anyway, so we don't say it over here. Okay, weiter. Now, the way you do this is the zachar, you take a tarnigel, and the tarnigelis l'nekeva. For a male person, you take a rooster, and for a woman, you take a hen, which is a female version. Now, the isha muberes, what would happen if it's a pregnant lady? So then, what you do is, number one, she needs for herself, right? But she also has a fetus. So therefore, you take a tarnigel or tarnigelis. You take both, one of each, according to the Kitzur. Why one of each? Tarnigel, shema vladu zachar. You take a chicken, a rooster, because maybe it's a boy. What would happen if the baby's a girl? Then what? So no problem. Technically, you could really have one for both, as over here, for example, where they have officially limited chickens. So they end up having one of each per family. So you could technically have one for a few people. It is a possibility. So therefore, the Kitzur says in a case where someone is pregnant, so you take one of each, and this way you cover everything. However, they quote from the Alter Rebbe where he says, that some people have the minig that they take for every pregnant person, they take 3. They take 2 females, one for the mother, one in case the baby is a girl, and one male in case it's a boy. And this is what it says in the Siddur. Now, if you look in the bottom, it says something, let's finish this piece first. Even for regular people, you could have 2 people that could use one, and that could count for both of them. So technically, if you have a shortage, you could have, like we said, over here, they're doing one of each per family. And some families, you have more than, multiple people. So you could technically do that. Now, if you look over there, the quotes in the Alter Rebbe, there is a minig that we try to take one per person, not just one per family of Zachar, one per family of the Keva. This is what the Alter Rebbe writes in the Siddur as well. So that's the minig. If possible, we try to do that when we could. Now, take a look in the bottom where it says Aleph. So over there, they quote from the Alter Rebbe. What? Over there, they quote from the Alter Rebbe like this. From the Rebbe, I'm sorry. That Gam Isha Sheyedas Bibirur Sheyesh Lo Ta'imim. Now, let's say you have a lady that knows for sure she's having twins, right? She's not just pregnant, she's having twins, which means there's 2 kids. So nevertheless, there is room to say that she could not have to have 5, right? Why 5? Because each baby could be either a Zachar and a Keva, or they could both be both Zachar and both Nekeva. So you have to have 2 girls and 2 boys for the babies, that's 4, and then 1 for her. So technically 5. But there is room to be makel that technically you could go a little bit less. Why? Because as we just explained, there is a shitta that you could really use 1 for a few people. So according to this, it's possible that even though a person is having twins, they could just take 3 as if they're having 1 regular baby, and that could be enough as well. And the Rebbe writes this, a little bit of a tzarech of exactly, maybe a person shouldn't have 5, even if they, let's say, did an ultrasound or something like that. He says, maybe you should, because on one hand, we know that you're machal Shabbos for a fetus, which means that if you know that it's there, then you count it, you could even be machal Shabbos for it. So it is a real thing. But on the other hand, it's not so common to have twins. So, but if a person knows they're having twins, so it goes a little bit back and forth. But Kitzur, the pile, the way it looks like is that you would have, in such a case, you would take 5 in this situation. Now, however, there is such a thing in the modern era of having what's called an ultrasound, which is a way that they can actually see if the baby's a boy or a girl. You can actually check to see if it's a boy or a girl. So in that case, it's a little bit less clear. You have opinions both ways. Some would say, look, it's a boy, so you don't have to get a rooster. You don't have to get a hen for the boy. It's a boy. And some people say, no, either they can make a mistake or this or that. So you have both opinions. But Pyle, I think I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if there's a for sure one answer, but there's definitely what to rely on. That if you know for sure that it's a boy, you could do a boy. B'chal, if you could do ultrasounds, we'll leave that for later. It's a whole shit from the Rebbe. When you get older, you'll find out more. But it could be sometimes they really insistent at certain points of development. It's important. So if you already know what it is, l'chura, you could just rely on that and just take one for whatever it is that it is. Yes.
So you said that you should bring Zachar and the Kiva in cases when you make part of the girl, to do both and then for the mother. What happens if it's in a stage that's the second month we don't, it's not yet a girl of the boy? Do you bring a male or a female? Like you just still bring two for the baby, or just bring one? I'll add on.
So 1 second. So
My question is,
yeah. Okay. What's your question? That's adding on.
At what point do you even need a Tarnago, right? Because it's not a boy or girl yet. It's not allowed that kid. Would you be shots?
So right, very good, very good. So 40 days is usually before 40 days. A fetus is called Maya Ba'alma. It's called nothing. It's just a cell. After 40 days is when already we consider it to be what we call a fetus, a separate category. So l'chora 40 days is when you would already start to have to do that. And that's generally the accepted way that it is, as far as I remember. So that's how you would do it. You got a question? Okay, weiter, yeah. Okay, yeah, you're with us. The halacha is that. Wait 1 second. Yeah, we did. Okay, no, that's not what it says. Means we choose white. Yeah, I'll explain that. You'll see soon. Hashem shenamar. Why do you choose white? Because the pasuk says that we say in what's it called? We say in the Haftarah that in yiyu chatoechem kashanim. If your avedas would be like red, then kashala galbinu, they should become white like snow. In other words, we see that white is the idea of kapara, of cleansing an aveda, and it becomes keilu white. So this is what I was telling you, that you don't specifically pursue white. In other words, you don't go and say, I want the white. Oh, the white's more expensive. I'm going to pay more for the white. You don't do that. Why not? Why? Because that becomes almost like a avodah zarah superstition that we're not doing. So what do you do? If you have a pile and one of them is white, that you have the option among others, so you choose that one. So it's not that you have to have a white one. You could have other colors. There was some years I remember, I think in Florida where I was there for a couple of years, they did not have white ones. In some places they have big fat white ones. In some places they have very colorful ones, all different types. So again, ideally we try to have white if you can, but don't make a big deal about it because too much already appears that it's becoming a dark Yamaiti. Let's just finish. Yeah. You had a question, Benny?
You say that that white is a part thing you it's white the color of white. Say that okay. You need to do certain like Tahara or like.
Good question. Beyond the scope of this year. Good question. Okay, let's go weiter. According to halacha, they say you should take it in your right hand. Okay. Now, the Alter Rebbe doesn't say this; it has to be in your right hand. But most people that are righties will take it in their right hand, anyways. But either way, fine. As I state, the Alter Rebbe doesn't bring it. We say certain psukim. There's different nuschais. Different people say different things, but we say bnei adam, and then we say it 3 times. So according to the Kitzur, you just do it once and you just twirl it 3 times. But our minig on the bottom it says, we say the whole paragraph 3 times. And after every time you say it, you do it 3 times. So in other words, it comes out to 9. And you do it 9 times. Now, B'chla, when you say swing, yeah, you ever see the people that always there was a protest, the kaparis. So their thing is, you're swinging the chickens, and it's this, it's that. Don't swing chickens. You wave it around your head like this. You're not taking it by the wings or the legs, and like a helicopter. So they get a little worked up about it. But be'emes, it's all could be done in a very respectful way. If you look at the way that Rebbe did it, it was with a lot of respect for the animal. B'chlav, there's a story. Okay, we'll come to this later. But the point is, you have to be very sensitive even to the animal for the idea of tsar b'lachaim, and therefore you have to treat it with respect and with care. You don't stamaza, you don't treat it. Sometimes you have kids that are a little bit nervous from the animals or from the shchita. So what they end up doing is they end up being very almost like aggressive. It's like a way of like because they're afraid of it. So you have to be careful. You can't hurt the animal. Just stamaza. That's not what we're doing over here. Okay, let's go weiter. Now, lekeach. Okay, that we did. Now, what would happen if you're doing it for other people as well? So let's say, you're the guy working behind the counter, whatever it is, and ladies come and they're very nervous, or kids come, or whatever, they want help. So if you're doing it for someone else, the Kitzur says, really, so first of all, you should say this is a kapara for you. This is an exchange for you. Okay, but usually they're reading it by themselves. Nowadays, we don't have an issue with reading so much, so people are reading it by themselves. So what you say is, this is, they'll say it by themselves. But there is an inyan that you should really do kaparis yourself before you help others. Like they say in the airplane, yeah, that you should put on your mask first before you put on for other people. So ideally, you should put on first. Why? Because there's an inyan of yavei zakai v'yichaper al alachayim, which means that the person who's already forgiven should be able to come, and he's clean, he's forgiven. He should be able to come and help someone who still needs help. It shouldn't be that both of you are coming with all your baggage, as they say, right? Sometimes someone has an issue, they're trying to deal it out with someone, and they go to talk it over, and that guy starts piling on them. You think you have it bad, I have it even worse than you. Okay, no one asked you, I just need help with whatever it is that I'm trying to deal with. So you can't go and try to get kapara when at the same time the guy who's doing it is also dealing with his own thing. So okay, that's what the Kitzur says. Not always does that work out. If it's a family, then let's say if it's a husband doing it, he should do it first. But if it's let's say one of you guys are helping run kaparas, so I don't know if your mom should have to do it first, but it'll be a good thing unless you're waiting for the middle of the night. Okay, 1 second. Ideally, the shchita should be at that same early hour as well. Take it right after you do the sivu. But poil, and why is that? Again, the same thing, because there's a chut shel chesed, there's this idea of kindness that we're trying to affect that's strong at that time. However, it appears that the shchita could be delayed if it needs to be. It could be a little bit later. That could happen as well. Okay, let's just finish this piece. We'll go to questions after, yeah? So then he continues and he says like this. Va'al yachshev, a person shouldn't think, and this is an important thing because what's happening when you do kaparas? Yeah, so va'al yachshev adam, a person shouldn't think shezeu kaparas imam. This is literally my kapara. In other words, that this animal will be killed and now I'm forgiven. That's not what happens. Ela yachshev, you should think ki kol ma sha'osin ba'oif hazeh, whatever's happening to this. Whatever's happening to this bird, in theory, should have happened to this person instead. And what that does is it causes a person to feel pained over his avedas. And then Hashem will accept his tshuva. The point is not that he's saying is that this is whatever's supposed to happen to me is going to happen to the animal. It's not exactly what happens. What's supposed to happen is it's supposed to awaken within you. That's why you're supposed to look at it, by the way, if you could. I remember I was once shechting somewhere, and the father forced his little girl to look at it. It was not pleasant. I turned away; she shouldn't see. But in Indian, you're supposed to see what's happening because it's supposed to affect you. It's not supposed to be, kill the animal for me. No, there's something happening that it's supposed to awaken within you a certain feeling of tshuva. If you could. So there is a minhag that some people have, that they'll throw the innards of the animal that you're not going to eat anyways, they throw it onto the roofs or the chutzs or whatever it is, and the reason why they would do that is so that other birds should be able to come and partake of it. Now, why would they do that? Because feeding other animals is a rachmanis, meaning you're doing something to help them. Now, why do you want to do that? It's a good time to do that. Because you want that Hashem should also have a rachmanis on you. So this reason is brought by the Alter Rebbe as well. You want Hashem to have rachmanis on you, so do something good for others, and Hashem will do something good for you. But there's another reason that the Alter Rebbe does not mention, which is another reason is because birds eat from stolen things. They fly around and they take from everyone, and therefore, a person wants to recognize that and distance themselves from stealing so much, so they get rid of it. They don't want it to be around. But again, this answer the Alter Rebbe doesn't bring. The significance of why he doesn't bring, I don't know. But that's just the fact, is that he doesn't bring it. Now, one more thing about this. What happens when a person will, let's say, do the kaparas? So it could be that the animal is not going to be kosher for two reasons. Yeah, it could be for a few reasons. What would be the reasons? That number one, it could be that the person didn't do a proper shechita. And it could also be the person did do a proper shechita, just the animal had an issue. So if it was that the animal had an issue, yeah, something was wrong with the animal itself, then the kapara was affected. Wait a second. Meaning that it's fine, it's the person's done, he doesn't have to think about it again. If the issue was in the shechita itself, the person messed, if the person messed up in the shechita, so then you have to get another chicken. There's a difference. If the shechita was done properly, the kapara is done. The pile of the animal is not edible because it was treif for another reason. That's a separate cheshbon. How often does which happen? To do what's called a nevela, which means that the sheikh messes up, shouldn't be very common because they're professionals. But if the actual animal to become treif, the truth is that you would never know. There's a certain chazaka that they're good, and these days the chickens are treated much better. They don't have the same issues like they used to have them all. It's very unlikely that the chicken itself is going to have an issue. And if it does, you're never going to know about it because by the time they take it apart, it's going to be who knows when. Amal used to be you brought your chicken to the sheikhet, he would shecht it and give it back to you, and you would take it home, or you would they would have someone salting it right there. It's actually the shechita once where they had a whole table set up and they were salting it mamish right there, and they used it. It was for the yeshiva. They froze it, they saved it, and they used it the whole year for chicken soup. So so it is shaykh. It does happen, but it's not common. So, but there is a difference. You have to know. Sometimes the sheikh will say, "I messed up," or something happened with the shechita. It doesn't mean necessarily he messed up because the chicken moved, But if that's the case, then you have to do it again. But if it's just that something was wrong with the chicken itself, then it would not be something that you have to do. Yes, in the actual shechita. Now, it could be they'll give you one for free. You say, look, the sheikh messed up, so they'll give you one if they have, if they have extra, they'll give you one for free. They'll say, okay, whatever. Here's another one. It's no one's fault. We're humans. Things happen. But so sometimes that could happen. Okay, let's go find. Let's finish this piece. Sorry, I'll take questions in a second. What happens if a person doesn't have roosters or chickens? Even here, apparently, they're very hard to get. Maybe the weather or whatever it is. So let's say you don't have tarnagelim. So yachol likach avos, you could take a goose, or shar bar chaim, or duck, or maybe another type of animal. She'eino yirol lakrava, but a type that you can't bring on the mizbeach, meaning it has to be something that you don't usually bring on the mizbeach shmul. And some people say even fish. Okay, now if you look in the bottom by the Gimel, it says, if you can't use chicken, do it on money, or the amount that it would cost you for a bird. So let's say however much it is. And instead of saying you say this money should go to tzedakah instead. And a lot of shulchan do this. They do money, they do fish. If you have to, then that is something that you could do in those situations. But you should not bring like doves or pigeons, which are, what's the problem with those? Because these are animals that used to be brought on the mizbeach. And what's the problem? It almost looks like you're bringing karbanis outside of the Beis Hamikdash, because this is not, you're just shechting it to eat. Over here, there's like a kapara element. There's something a little different about it, and therefore we don't want you to bring something that you could normally bring on the mizbeach. The minig is that you give the kaparis to poor people, right? You give them the chicken. Now, what's the problem with that? You go to a poor person and you say, "Here's your chicken. This is from the biggest balaveda in town." Yeah. This guy, he did a kol davar aser. Here's his chicken. Enjoy. So it's not nice. So the best way to do is you switch it out for money. So let's say a person does kaparis, the shchita, then he'll take the money value, give that to a poor person, and then keep the chicken for himself. And this way it's nice. Otherwise, you're taking something that figuratively is full of avedis, even though it's not really. But it has that feel, and you give that to someone and you say, enjoy your chicken. That's not a very nice thing. So now there is a separate mitzvah that's called kisi adam. Kisi adam is that you cover over the dam from an animal that was shechted. Now the way it works is you have to do what's called the dam. It's the dam tamsis. It's the dam that the nefesh is yitzibah, the dam that the actual nefesh leaves. So it's not necessarily the first little bit, but it's a little bit after. Not the one that comes out much later, but it's like the whatever. I don't get too graphic, but you got the idea. Now usually they'll have something on the side to use. There's specific things you could use and some things not. So they'll have sawdust usually, or pieces of wood chips. Those are things that you could generally use, and you make a bracha on it. And the thing is like this: it's actually the mitzvah of the sheikhet. It's the sheikhet's mitzvah, and that's why you'll always see people that know. You'll hear them asking the sheikhet, "Can I do it?" They're not just asking because they don't want to get cut by mistake. They're asking because it really belongs to the sheikhet. It's his mitzvah. Whoever shechts does the kisei adam. So you ask him for permission. Usually he says yes, because he'll have plenty later anyways. And that is part of the reason of why you tip the sheikh. One of the reasons is you're tipping him for giving you that mitzvah. Now it's not always that; it's also you're tipping him because he, helped you with kapara. But you have that idea that you're doing that as well. That's part of it as well. And one more thing also. There was a story with the Rebbe, with the Friedrich Rebbe Rashab. I don't remember that when the Sheikh came in to discuss whatever it was, so he had his night, his chalif was out, and the Rebbe Friedrich Rebbe Rashab, I don't remember, he turned the chicken away. The chicken shouldn't see it. In other words, you don't want to first of all scare the chicken is a problem of tefus. But besides for that, the real issue is again, it's a tzar b'lechaim, and it's not only about the animal, what it knows, what it doesn't know. Lav Dafka doesn't understand the whole thing, but it's also mitzat us. We don't want to create these achzarious traits, of these harsh traits of being of not caring or not being sensitive. So it's mitzat everything, but you try not to really do this idea, like we said before, about tzar b'lechaim in all ways, including that would be one as well. You had a question? Yeah.
So do you say like
Yeah. Instead of saying Zak Tarni goes, so you would say Zak has Usually, it's some of the newer Siddurim, they have the alternative versions. For that reason, because now people do it. You would think that now no one does it because it's like everyone, but the opposite. There's so many shluchim and so many communities that are actually spread out that sometimes that is what you do. And also there are people that are sensitive to using animals b'chlal. They don't like it. Some of them are vegans or whatever. So you have options for them as well. Okay, let's go further.
Question.
Yeah.
How hard is it to be a sheifa?
Come to me after. Sit base. Ein oimrim Mizmor l'Seida on Erev Reish and Erev Yom Kippur. We don't say Mizmor l'Seida. Mizmor l'Seida is a carbon. The carbon toida. How long can you eat the carbon for?
15 hours.
No, usually that day and that night. On Yom Kippur, are you allowed to eat at night? No. So the halacha is anytime you can't complete the zman of a carbon, you don't bring it. Another example would be Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach and Erev Yom Kippur. Now, Erev Tisha B'Av, why not? Because that's not in the Torah, right? So it's just the two Torah ones. Erev Yom Kippur and Erev Pesach, you don't say Mizmor l'Seder for that reason, that you're not going to be able to finish it that night. So therefore, you don't do it. So here also, you don't say Mizmor l'Seder. You also don't say Tachnun. And Loi Lav Natzech, and you don't say Lav Natzech. It's a little yamtiv. Gam Avinu Malkeinu ain't. We also don't say Avinu Malkeinu. However, there are some people that if Yom Kippur is Shabbos, so then some people they add over here. Some people have the minhag. They would say Avinu Malkeinu in the morning when Erev Yom Kippur is Shabbos. Okay, we don't do that. You see in the bottom it says Amen again. Okay, so we don't say Avinu Malkeinu. Fine. Siv Gimel. Mitzvah laharbes besuda. There's a mitzvah on Tes Tishrei to have a big suda, to have more sudas. Lachol, to eat, velishtes, and to drink. And over there they quote from the Siddur, where the Alter Rebbe writes, Kashir stay yamim. You have to eat as much as 2 days. Erev Yom Kippur, v'yem Kippur, you have to have for both days. Why is it a mitzvah to eat on that day? So number one, hachana, you're preparing for a fast. If you don't prepare, you're not going to have a good fast. Number two is you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a Yom Tif. So because you're not allowed to eat on Yom Tif, so therefore you eat extra the day before. And number three is you want to show simcha. You're coming to the Yom Adin. You're assured you're going to be mechuper. You're going to be forgiven from the Eibishter. You want to celebrate that. The way you celebrate that is by eating. So therefore, on Erev Yom Kippur, you're supposed to have a lot of sudas. Yeah. If a person eats on Erev Yom Kippur and drinks in order to fulfill the mitzvah, it's considered as if you fasted. There is an inyan api Kabbalah to fast 2 days in a row. There are a certain amount of numbers of fasts that you do. Yeah, for example, for certain Avedis, you fast 83 fast, 40 this or whatever, all different numbers. So if you fast 2 days in a row, mamish 2 days in a row, that's considered as if you fasted. I think it's 83 fast, which covers a lot of Avedis that a person may have done. So therefore, we say is that if you eat on Erev Yom Kippur, it's as if you fasted on that day to the point that it would be as if you fasted 2 days in a row. So therefore, you get all the kapara that you would have done if you would have fasted for 2 days in a row. There is an idea you should eat fish in the first meal, and this is but not in the second one. It doesn't say this in the Alter Rebbe. In fact, it's mashma that maybe that may be the other way around, if I'm not mistaken, according to Alter Rebbe, maybe you should dafka eat fish the second Suda. Okay, we'll leave that for now. But the point is, there are some people also that because of what we mentioned, they have a minhag, they eat with two hands. Why do they eat with two hands, even though they usually eat with one? To show that it's a mitzvah, there's a chavivus, they want to show that they're very excited about it, so therefore they do that. Now, if you go to the bottom where it says "Hey," so we have from the Alter Rebbe, sorry, where it says "Noigen lachol krepchin" or kreplach be'erev Yom Kippur. There's also a minute that we eat kreplach. Why do we eat kreplach? So number one, because the outside covers over the inside. Any day that we get a kapara, we try to do that. So the Kippur, Shana Rabbah, and also on Purim or on Purim itself, because Purim there was a miracle that was covered over, you didn't see it, so something to do with that. And also some people like to have maybe two. Okay, we'll leave that for now. Doesn't matter. One second. There's also a minute that we ask for lekach. You bet lekach, as it's called. And you eat from it. And that idea is that basically, if you're going to have to ask anything throughout the year, so you should be yetzer with this, where you go to the gabbai and you ask them if you can what's called bet lekach. You want to be able to have that, and that should cover you for the rest of the year. Okay, we'll leave the rest for tomorrow, Mitzvah.